You know what I love? I love it when a sponsor contacts me and I already love and recommend their brand. And what I love even more, the cherry on top, they're giving away over $150,000 in grants. Well, who's the company? It's Orgain Nutrition. They have Orgain grants for greater good because Dr. Andrew Abraham, who started the company, knows that sometimes to take your business to the next level, you need more than just the amazing idea that's going to change the world. You need money. Now, his story is pretty incredible. He had cancer in his teenage years and ended up beating it, especially with nutrition, which is why he actually wanted to take it to the world. And it hits really close to home for me right now because my kiddo's dad has stage 4 inoperable cancer, and it's insane to know how much nutrition plays a part. Orgain is organic. I use it all the time, especially in between millionaire interviews because it's convenient and actually good for you. And I think it's really important that everybody knows what their mission is. So if you are a startup, at least 2 years old or older in business, and you're in the meditation, mindfulness space, active lifestyle, nutrition, and the health and wellness, you could apply today before March 20th and get a chance at $50,000. They're picking 3 different businesses for $50,000 a piece so you can take your business to the next level. Make sure you check out orgain.com/grants with an S beforehand and apply today. I highly recommend the company in general, and thank you so much. Have an absolute amazing day. Enjoy.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and today on the show, we have Erik Van Horn. You can check him out at franchisesecrets.com, and he told me I was allowed to grill him today all about franchise because he's the man. No, he didn't say that part. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Great intro, right?
And then with that introduction, I don't know. We're going to see where this goes.
So the reason why I say that is because I go back and forth, right? I know people that have done franchises and have done such an amazing job. And then there's the other side of people that are like, oh, but why don't I just start it myself? Because there's issues on both sides. No business is perfect in any way. I would love to hear your history with franchises first, and then we'll dive in deep.
I can't wait to go into that question because I love that question. But my history, I first started in franchising when I was in my 20s. I quit law school. I was registered for law school and realized as a C student, I probably did not want to go through that hard time. And so I quit law school. I started up a lawn company and I was getting my real estate license at the same time. And I was planting flowers for an older lady, and she came out and she said, "Erik, it's hot outside. Here's a glass of water. What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a real estate investor." And she said, "Oh, that's funny. We did that 20 years ago and we bought a condo down by the ocean." I was in Virginia Beach. And I said, "Well, tell me more." She's like, "Well, we have a tenant in there now and we just don't want to have anything to do with it anymore." What do you want to do with it? She said, "We want to sell it." And I said, "Well, I'll buy it. How much do you want for it?" She said, "I just want somebody to take over my payments." And I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds too good to be true. And I looked at her mortgage statement because I, knew enough to look at that. And it said an assumable mortgage. So I knew that I could just really assume her mortgage, but I didn't have $5,000 for closing costs or whatever it was going to cost me. So I went to my parents. I said, "Hey, do you guys want to invest in this with me? We'll be 50-50 partners and we'll just split the deal." And they said, "Erik, that sounds too good to be true." My real estate broker at the time said, "I don't know how Erik found this, but he did. And it's legit. If you guys don't do it, I'm going to do it." And long story short, I ended up buying that thing with my parents, and they ended up buying me out. And that's where I got my first seed money to buy my first franchise.
Well, that is a very serendipitous story, which we'll talk about serendipity later, because that's kind of insane. Most old ladies aren't like, "Have some water and buy my house," right?
I know. And
Okay.
she was genuinely wanting to help. One of the things she said to me is that she said, "Erik, you seem like a nice young man. I want to help you."
That's amazing that there are still good people. No, we know that there's good people in the world, but when it sounds like it's too good to be true, unfortunately, in the internet world that we live in, usually it is. And it's amazing to hear
Yes.
that it's not. There's still good people out there. All right. So let's dive deep. What did you actually do for that first franchise?
So I bought a Liberty Tax Service. It was a tax franchise, and I bought it because it was low cost at the time, and I didn't make a ton of money off of that. So it was a low cost one. They were growing at the time, And I had some friends that were looking at it, and I met the founder. I liked him. I wanted to be around a company that had young people in it too. And that was that company. So I started my first year. I started in Kansas City, and I finished in the top 10 that year. And I realized that it wasn't because I'd never done taxes before. I've never done taxes or accounting or anything like that. It was a marketing business. So I realized that business isn't always what it appears to be. So I was in the tax business. People thought I was a tax guy, but I was a sales and marketing guy. And that's really the most successful franchisees in that system were not CPAs. They were not accountants. They were operations or sales and marketing people.
Okay. So this is where we start to dive in a little deeper, because it is funny that you went from law to tax, but you didn't even have to do any of the tax stuff. It sounds really boring. If you did, it actually would get you more stuck into the weeds if you were, right? So, and this is the thing that I hang up with the franchise piece in general anyway, because I feel like the people that buy franchises are the ones that want the sales and marketing sort of already figured out and done. They're like the people that just want to be like, oh, I want somebody else to have figured that piece out instead of them doing it. What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, there's different ones, different franchises have different things that are built out for you. So I want to be in a franchise that has a lot of systems and processes. That way, today I want a franchise that I can put a manager in place and they can execute the system. I don't want to have to do any of that. So if they've got the sales and marketing figured out, I want a manager that's an operation manager. I want them to be really good at that because they can get everything else from the franchisor. If I have someone that's really good at sales as a business partner or a manager, or they're good at marketing, I want the opposite for that. So I just look at it like I want the franchise to be able to provide the system of doing business. I don't care what the widget is. I don't care what they're selling or what the service is. I want to know what are they going to do to help me grow?
So it's like puzzle pieces and we're putting it together, because some franchises are good at something. Like, I feel like what's so interesting and what I didn't understand a long time ago, and a lot of people don't before they get into franchises, is like some of them are really good at certain things and some of them suck at certain things, right? Tell me a little bit more about how you figure that stuff out.
About the sucky stuff?
Yeah.
I'm still figuring some of this stuff out, by the way. So, I've owned 6 brands in 8 different states and for almost 20 years, but I am still figuring things out. And one of the things that's just blatantly obvious to me now is a lot of these franchisors don't have good consumer-facing sales processes. That is, the consumer comes in and they don't have it laid out exactly what to do to take them from the time that they walk in or you meet the customer until the sale is closed, and even beyond that. But, in my world of marketing, especially on online marketing, I'm sure we have a lot of the same friends. That's what happens in that world. But in franchising, they seem to be behind in a lot of that stuff with copy, with being able to present to someone and use words that are, influence and persuasion. All of that stuff is really, franchising hasn't caught up to a lot of that. So that I see as a weakness overall in franchising.
I appreciate you saying that though, too, because a lot of the times as a franchise, since you're buying something and it's usually quite a bit of money, you assume that it's quote unquote perfect, or it's got a lot of the bugs worked out. And when you buy any business, no matter how much money it's making, there's always issues, right? No matter what, even if you just built it from scratch, there's issues. We can't get around that. How do you try and decide when you're going to buy a franchise what those issues are in advance before you actually get into it?
Gosh, this is a question that I get from people that come to me and they want to buy a franchise, and I'm helping them, and I really try to figure out what it is that they really need. But when someone's first buying a franchise, they really need to have a blank slate in their own mind. They think they know what they want. They really don't know what they want. A lot of people come, they think they want a Subway. And when you get into it, they want a Subway or McDonald's because of the brand name. It's not because they love working with high turnover, employees. Seriously. That, none of them are going to be around 6 months from now. They don't love that, but they're not thinking about that. So they're really getting into it because they want a big brand name behind them. So a lot of people get into it for comfort and just to be around a business like that.
Like it has longevity, and therefore we now have more trust because of it, but there's still problems.
Yes. There's still problems, and all of these brands have problems. And going back to your point, when people first get into a brand, they They want it all figured out. And that's what they think that they're buying. Any emerging franchise out there that has less than 50 stores or locations open is emerging. They're still figuring things out. And I'm a part of those. So I think you just need to know what you're getting into. If you're okay with that as an existing business owner, you can go into a younger system like that and typically be fine, because that's what I do. I don't mind going into an emerging brand, and I want some help and some support from them, but I don't need them to give me the entire playbook. It's people that are in corporate America that I get nervous when they go into an emerging brand and they've used to hiring C-level executives, but they're not used to hiring someone for $15 an hour. That's when there's a disconnect right there. And then brands get, and one of the things that's happening in today's franchise environment, they're selling out so fast. So there's very few brands that aren't emerging that are available, because anything that's established, you look at the Entrepreneur 500, and I was just looking at that the other day, and I've owned one of the top brands that was on the magazine, on the face of the magazine, and they were talking how great it is and how it's emerging, how it's fast growing. But I looked at that, and that was 3 years ago they were doing that. You can't buy that brand today. It's gone. It's sold. And so it seems like all the magazines and everything, all the lists are lagging 1 to 2 to 3 years behind. So it's really challenged for people that want to buy the proven model, the franchisor that has it all figured out, because it's usually not available. But I think you kind of break people up into two different buying groups, and there's two different ways to expand. You can go into that emerging brand and you can grow like that. Let's say it's Orange Theory. Everybody knows who Orange Theory is, and they've had a tremendous amount of success. If you got into that early, you know the growing pains. I have friends. I just got a text from a friend of mine who owns one of those, and she was sending me someone to talk to that she knows. She's like, "Hey, Eric, you should help this guy find a franchise." But she's in Orange Theory. I know the early stories of Orange Theory. It isn't what it was today. Today, it's just fantastic. I mean, those things are great, and all the owners that I know are really, really happy with that brand. And so people can still get into a brand late and have a growth strategy of paying more money, not getting as great of a territory, but you have to get your foot in the door. So if you're not going to go with an emerging brand where you buy a whole entire market, let's say you buy Denver, and you need to get into a brand, you have to go to the worst territory around you that's available, get something started, and then grow from there. Get into the franchise, learn the model so you are actually good at doing it. And once you're good at doing that, all franchises have stores that eventually come up for sale, or people that don't open up their territories. So that's the other way to grow. If you want something that's a little bit more stable, you want to talk to a bunch of franchisees who are actually out there doing it to find out how well they're doing. So I see those as two different ways to grow, and I've done it both ways.
Okay. So in regards to that, I think it also matters who the person is that's buying it, what their strengths are. But if somebody that hasn't owned a business before, how do we figure out what their strengths actually are? Do you tap into that? Like you said, the corporate people that are used to hiring, but they're not used to hiring this type, right? It's a totally different strength.
Yeah, and I like to, so I need to know what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. I get nervous if their strength is an engineer, because if there's not a lot of franchises for the engineer type personality, because a lot of business ownership is sales and marketing. You need to be out there. You need to be the face of the business for a time. So there are some businesses out there that are okay for that. But mostly, if someone has an operation background, then they are good at implementing systems and processes. They'll go to the franchisor will tell them what to do, and they'll do exactly what they're supposed to do. If they have the hustle, they have the sales background or the marketing background, I know that they can get in there and make it work just by their own grit and hustle themselves. But it depends on the brand too. I think with a service-based brand versus a retail-based brand, the service ones you have more control over. They're less expensive to get started. You are going out there, you're hunting for business, and you're typically have someone working for you when a job is being delivered. So you're paying for labor when you are making money. In retail, you are hoping that you have great pre-sales, you have customers coming in the door, And if you don't, you still have to pay your labor. You still have to pay your rent and every utilities, everything that's involved with that. So I think it's a bit more of a challenge for somebody that hasn't owned a business to go into the retail sector because of the pressure of that. And this is one of the things that I've seen, Jaime, as I talk to different people. I want to know, in addition to their strengths and weaknesses, how well they can make decisions under pressure. And I see a lot of people that get into business, things will go wrong. It's not if, right? Things will break, things will happen, challenges will come up. And if you make a decision to pull back marketing, to pull back on having some of your key people working, then you're starting to go down this path where it's not healthy for your business. And so I like people that can make decisions and can make decisions under pressure. And under pressure meaning when business isn't going as good as you had hoped it would.
You sound like a dating coach, like you're trying to match up this person with this franchise. How do you figure out what their strengths are and weaknesses are without really knowing them when they become a client?
I asked them. One of the things that I started to do on accident that I think helped me become better at this, I started asking them who they are, like what life events, things that have happened in their childhood or growing up that impacted them to be who they are today. And I've heard it all. I've heard people coming over here as immigrants and going from country to country before finally ending up here, and stories of how their dad worked, many jobs and just did all of this crazy stuff that we've all heard, these wonderful stories. And so then they tell me, Erik, I've got grit and I've got a work ethic. And when it's anchored to that context, I know it, So I started to ask those questions to really understand who they are. And it's amazing. I've had people on the phone crying with me. And so you really start to understand people. So I like to have that context to just ask the types of questions that I ask. But at the end of the day, people have goals. And I want to help them reach their goal with whatever that is. Sometimes it's a very big goal. Sometimes it's too big of a goal, and I can't help them. And I'm very upfront. I'm like, you want to do what? I can't help you. You may as well keep your corporate job and fly everywhere all the time because you're making really good money at it. But you can't do what you want to do. I mean, some people, they want to put $100,000 down and make $1 million their first year. I cannot help that person.
Expectations are very interesting.
Yeah, expectation management. Yeah. But then you've got other people that they feel bad about even making a little bit of money. They're like, I want a business that I can quit my job, and they're not making very much at their job, but they've saved a really good amount of money. And I know I can really help that person. So I love it when I hear expectations from people, and I know that they're going to hear from franchisees how well they're actually doing, and it's going to meet the expectations or exceed the expectations of the people that I'm working with. So that's probably one of the most important things for me, is to know what the franchisees are actually doing out there, what the people that are working with me today are going to hear tomorrow with these different franchisees, because nothing else matters. If the franchisor is selling somebody, that's going to come out when they're talking to franchisees. And so that's a really important piece, is talking to those franchisees about this kind of stuff. But other than that, when they're talking to the franchisees, they need to see themselves doing whatever they do. If they hate, well, here's an example. The senior care business. A lot of people want to get into the senior care business because they've experienced something in their life where they had to have, that care. And so there's an emotional connection. They want to get in that because they want to help people. Some senior care franchises, play on that, and not all of them, but there's going to be some that might just do that. And I know the senior care business is a low wage staffing business. And so I know these different things. And if they don't want to be in the staffing business, I'm never going to show them senior care, because that's what that business is. Yeah. Are there moments where you can have an impact on somebody's life? Absolutely. But if they're more impact driven, it's amazing. People they're so used to their job being their identity. They kind of want their business to be their identity, when in reality, they just really want to have the freedom to do the things that they want to do. And I've helped a lot of people get into fitness over the years. And I hear stories back from these different owners, these different franchisees of like, Erik, had the most unexpected thing happen last week. I'm like, well, what was this totally unexpected thing? like this member came in and they were just crying and crying. And they said, you changed my life. Thank you for bringing this to my town. And he's like, Erik, I got into this fitness industry not thinking I was going to be changing people's lives, but it's, if you don't know really what the business is about and you think you know what it's about, you're probably going to be disappointed. So I know the inside scoop on a lot of these brands. I know what the business really is versus what it looks like from the outside. So I really try to match them accordingly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And having an insider information on that is huge instead of what the franchisee is telling you because or franchisor. So what are some other success traits, or what about grit really makes a difference? Because when we start, especially whether you're starting your own business or in it, it feels like there's these traits that are more potent for being somebody to be successful or not, right? Expectation management, definitely one, but grit comes up over and over. So why is grit so important?
Because when something goes wrong, something happens, you take ownership of it and you can just get it done. And when I look at things that have happened in my businesses, when things go wrong, I'm okay jumping in to get it done. If a hire doesn't work out, or and back in the early days, I had someone hauled off to jail, for theft. And so I knew I just had to make it happen. My wife knew I had to make it happen. So I went in there and made decisions. And there's been different parts in my career owning different franchises where I've been very hands off, but I'm always ready to go back in. Whenever I'm needed, I will go back in. I think one of the biggest things within franchising too is having the ability to be an entrepreneur and think and create and do things on your own, and then also just listen and execute something that's already proven, that's already successful, and there's a balance between the two. So I see the best franchisees able to balance that, and that also goes into delegating to your employees. So if you can be a really effective delegator, that's the only way you can grow and scale. It's the only way you can go from one location to two, or go from a service-based business from 500 to 1 million, and so on and so forth. So I'm a huge believer. I do it to a fault. I delegate too quickly most of the time.
Okay, because this is a perfect segue into what I want to talk about, especially because you were talking about ownership. I'm hiring right now, and somebody just started blaming their company as to why they missed the interview. And I'm like, if you're already right? Yeah, and so what hiring, because we can delegate, that's definitely in the future, but if you don't hire the right people to delegate to, it's going to keep bouncing back to you. So I know you have examples of being able to do this really, really well. What can you tell us about hiring so we actually get somebody that's really, really good?
So I've hired some really good people two different ways. One, just from friends and family. They come from friends and family, people that know me, my style. It's way better. I have had a lot better success oh yeah. And not necessarily like a friend of a friend, but I have a great hire in one of my markets that I put out, and I said, hey, I'm hiring, I need a district operational person. And someone said, hey, Erik, so-and-so is looking at leaving her job because she is not able to grow beyond where she is right now. And then when I did talk to this person, they said, Erik, I need at least, I think it was 6 weeks or 8 weeks to give my current employer time to transition. And I'm like, that sucks for me, but awesome that They're like that. And so it's just things like that I'm like, that, it's the opposite of what you just experienced, yes. Right? It's like she wanted to help, and your person didn't want to take ownership of it. One of my best hires was in a partnership group that I was in Orange County, and we had gone through manager after manager and it's not always their fault. Like, here's the thing. You have to take ownership of you as the owner doing things wrong. So us as the ownership group, we're all used to owning our own businesses. And now we were an ownership group trying to give this manager or district operational manager report to 4 different people. We all had different ways of doing things. And that was not smart. We realized that after we burned through 2 managers, and we said, let's take a step back and let's hire like we know how to hire. And so we had a bunch of applications, did it the traditional way. We had interview after interview, and then just whittled it down to 3 different interviews where we had a dinner with their spouse, and out of that group selected the one that we wanted to grow with. And we did. And he was a fantastic guy. Almost, well, not almost, he really was too good. And this is a mistake that I made hiring this person that's changed everything that I do moving forward. But we would say as a partnership group, he's so smart. He's always going to be ahead of us in whatever he's thinking and doing. And we knew that he wanted equity, and we knew that we should give him equity, but we thought we would just buy some time and not do that right now. And then we got the phone call. He said, I quit. And he didn't quite say it like that, but he said, guys, I've loved it. You guys have taught me a lot. We're one of the top performing franchisees in this whole group. And it was Solo Salon Studios is what we owned in Orange County. We had 12 locations there. And so he learned on our dime, and we knew that, but he had that owner mentality. But because he was thinking about becoming an owner, and we didn't give him a way to become part of our ownership group. So I learned a huge lesson there. A little bit of equity goes a long way. Post-mortem, we would talk to him and like, hey, Mirko, if we would have given you equity, would you have stayed for this much? He's like, yeah, I would have, guys. He's a dear friend today. He's one of the best franchisees in that group, and he's still growing and expanding. So like we fully supported him, and we had that relationship with him. And this will tell you the kind of guy that he is. He stayed with us through a year transition until we ultimately exited that business. But he still stayed on with us as he was doing his own thing. So anyway, that's hiring with somebody with an owner mentality, giving them a piece of equity or phantom equity. I'm a huge believer in that these days.
How soon is soon enough on that too? Because it's like, oh, I didn't realize until it was too late. Well, what is the too late? Or do you have that conversation right at the very, very beginning?
I'm starting to have, it just depends. One of them right now, I'm having it at the very beginning because that's what they want. And if I know that that's what they want from the beginning, then you can give phantom equity tied to performance, right? If you'll get equity, if a phantom equity, if you are with us once the store opens, and then a year after it vests, after it opens, and then you're vested at this. If you stay with us this long, then you get X amount. So that's a typical way that we're doing it right now. And phantom equity meaning it's not real equity. They're not legally on the hook or liable for anything within the business. And then they're not obligated to capital calls either. It's basically when cash flow is happening, they get a percentage of the distributions.
Okay, great. Well, and how do you, especially for people that are newer to franchise, should they do this? Especially if they're like, I don't know when to do it, when not. There's just a lot more unknowns when they're not like you who have done it a million times and know that this is really important.
So should somebody new to franchising do this?
Yes, give equity right away, especially if it's like their baby and they haven't, right? They don't know if it's a great hire or not a great hire. They just don't know all the ins and outs like you do.
I think if you are from corporate America and you've never experienced that before, then you probably do not want to start diving into giving equity. You might want to do like a profit sharing or some type of bonus structure. I think that's probably the easiest way to get into it is bonusing off of performance. And I think a lot of people get that wrong. They bonus off of something that's not tied to profit and loss. They're just tied to revenue. Instead, that way it's always easy to increase revenue. It could be easy to increase revenue, but if that's the only goal, then that can come at a cost, right? Whatever the marketing expenses are or whatnot. So that's definitely I would start walking before you run, and that's just different bonus structures and things like that. And that's just good to have in general.
Great. I appreciate that. Yeah. Cause I don't want everybody running out there and being like, I'm giving phantom equity to all the people. It's like, okay, wait, just in case.
No, that's an incredible point, because you don't want to do anything before you're ready to do it and before you've learned it. And if you are in a franchise organization, talk to the people that are better than you, that are ahead of you, to see how they're doing it with their people that are working for them right now. And it may or may not work within different structures, or there might be a better way to do it. But I'm a huge believer in talking to people that are a little bit ahead of you in success, whether that's in a franchise or outside of franchising.
What would you do? Like, I have a couple clients that have been in franchises, and one of them is bigger than all the rest of them. So everybody's looking to him instead of him being able to get ideas otherwise. So it's sort of like not untested ground, but he doesn't really have access to those mentors that would be a lot easier otherwise. What do you suggest for somebody like him?
We're breaking up a little bit. Are you getting that on your end or is it just on my end?
No, I did. I heard it.
Can
just
you
fine.
hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I just want to make sure that you were okay. Can you please repeat that?
Yeah, no problem. So I have a client that's in the franchise space, but he's the bigger of the franchises. So he can't go to somebody that's a mentor because he's everybody's looking to him, which is tough, right? So of course, don't get me wrong, he has me and I'm going to help him do some of the things that because the franchise is kind of like an old school franchise. So there's a lot of different tactics that we could try, but it sucks for him to go, I have to go outside of the pool of all the people that know this anyway. What would you suggest for somebody that's in that situation?
Work with somebody like you.
Well, that was a very leading question, really I suppose. Yeah.
You have to go. I'll set the stage. Franchisors are mostly concerned with the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
You've got the lower performers that they're either helping exit the business or get a little bit better, but you've got the top 10% of the franchisees. The system's not really helping them out. They're not giving, if I'm right, they're not giving him the tools to manage the size of his business today. They're not giving him the training to think differently and to go and to double his business because he's the only one doing that. And they figure he's okay because he's going to be pulling everybody else up at this level anyway. Yeah. This is super common. And I've experienced it and a lot of my friends as top franchisees in different systems. Once you reach that point, you're kind of stuck and you're siloed out there. What I've seen out there is franchisees are siloed to their brand. They know a lot about their brand, and even within the industry, they see everybody else as competition. So there's really not any sharing going on the industry events. So they don't know what to do unless they're smart enough to find somebody like you or me that helps them get to the next level. I started a private Facebook group for franchisees just to help them communicate with each other and help solve problems that they all might have. Because there's nothing out there that I've seen like that where there's just a community of franchisees. So I started that earlier a few months ago.
So send me that link later so I can send it to him. Because I suggested a mastermind group of other people that are in similar structures so they can all test marketing and not just be the one guy testing a ton of different marketing tactics. That gets really expensive too.
Out of that Facebook group, I'm probably going to be starting a mastermind out of that. And so you're going to have to come. Okay. I'm going to make you commit on this podcast today.
Smart man. Oh, you are good at this.
That's our world. You and I are in this mastermind world. I'm a part of two different paid expensive masterminds because masterminds aren't cheap, but they're extremely valuable. I mean, there's nothing that's accelerated my business more than being a part of these paid expensive masterminds. And I'm getting into this as the leader of masterminds. Bedros Keuilian and I have a mastermind for franchisors, and we are having our first event next week. And then like I said, I'm considering starting one up in the franchisee space because it's needed, right? It's out there in the entrepreneurial world, in the info product, in the digital marketing world, but it's not in the franchise world. And I see a huge need for it.
Well, and it's so interesting to me because it seems like we just lean on the franchisors so much in the franchise space. And that's why it's not prevalent. But in business, we're regular business, we're grasping at straws going, somebody help me, please, right? Whereas the other people are just looking towards that. So it's awesome that you can create that, and kind of sad that you have to, because the franchisors are kind of supposed to be helping even the top guys.
I know, they're supposed to do that. Oh my goodness. But I'm starting my own franchise in the roofing space as a franchisor. And it's one of the things that we are cultivating, that we will be cultivating. We're not selling it yet, but we will be cultivating that. The top franchisees getting together. I know Bedros is great at this with the top franchisees in his franchise, gets them together and learns. And that's really where the magic happens, is when you pull together the top performers and the franchisors, not just telling them what to do, but actually listening. And like I said, that's where the magic happens. Sadly, too many franchisors don't do that.
See, now I want to talk about this because you're really good at these segues and what I have on my list already, just so you know. So becoming a franchisor, especially if you already have a business that's doing well and it can be franchisable, what are you looking for? And I know this is a huge, long potential conversation, but what do you do when you really go, you know what, I'm going to be a franchisor in the roofing space?
So a lot of people have a business, and this definitely not mostly in the roofing space, but like people have a sexy, cool business, and they get people saying, "Hey, is this a franchise? Is this a franchise?" And they think, "I should probably franchise this." So my advice to a lot of people is don't franchise. Like, if you enjoy your business today and it provides a really good lifestyle, and you're having a great time and making really good money, could you franchise it, and could it sell, and could it be successful? I'm sure it could be. But you go from being a successful business owner with an incredible lifestyle to starting a franchise where you're not in that business anymore. You're in the business of helping people get into business. And it's completely different. And I did this as a master franchisee in Austin. I bought this region of Austin, Texas, when I had 4 stores of Liberty Tax, and I sold it when we had 42. People never appreciated what I gave to them, how I helped them, what I did for them, until I was gone. And then they said, "Erik, I can't believe the support that I'm getting now isn't what you used to give." And I knew that. So franchisors are punching bags. You're never going to live up to the franchisee's expectation. And there's a lot of bad things about being a franchisor. But on the flip side, it can be very lucrative, and you can help a lot of people. And that's both of those reasons are why I want to get into that side, because I can create processes and systems for my 12 solo salons or whatever it is. I can do some marketing things for that, and it will impact 12 locations. But that's all it will impact unless I share it with other people. If I'm at the franchisor level, I can get in my zone of genius and help that franchisor and move the needle for a lot of people. And so I'm excited to get into the business because I can help a lot of people, and I want to just build something bigger. And so that's the reason I wanted to get in on the franchisor side. And I'm not just doing it by myself either, because I think franchisors that are really good in their industry or whatever that is, they're still, if they don't have franchising experience, they'd limit themselves. It's just one thing that they don't have that does not set them up for the success the best way. So in this partnership, I have someone with industry experience in the roofing space, franchisor experience because he's an experienced, successful franchisor, and then me and another guy who have franchisee experience, a lot of it, and franchise sales experience, and then marketing and sales as well. So with all of that, I think the franchisor is going to be a really strong one.
That's awesome. Yeah, we totally talked about being a punching bag for them already. So we were like, and they suck, right? And you're like, yeah, great. Totally want to jump into that.
Franchisors think franchisors yes. never are really never happy with franchisees either. They're never really doing enough. We're never getting appreciated. And but I tell you what, when I was an area developer, and that was a good system because we're always trying to take care of our top performers and point them out and to learn from them. So I think the best franchisors are going to do that. And then at some point, like Cameron Harold, I had him on my podcast, and he's been in franchising forever and helps a ton of COOs. But there's phases that franchisees go through, and at the end of the day, there's a we mentality, mm-hmm. and we're in business together and we're moving forward together. But there's definitely ups and downs and peaks and valleys until the franchisee and franchisor get to that place.
Definitely. How did you find your partners? Because that's the other piece. It's like, okay, is it the right Is it just like hiring, but almost crazier because you're partnering, like a marriage? Again, you're a dating coach and you're a marriage coach now too. So how do you find your partners?
One of the partners raised me. My parents, they raised me, and they said, "We will never get into business with Erik." And then I brought them the deal of a lifetime, and then that turned out really well in that first real estate deal. And so we ended up partnering together on a couple businesses. And then after a year or two of that, then I was doing my own, and then we'd do some together. And so that was the first partnership that I had, and there was real hesitancy with that on their part to do that with. Yeah, but it worked out really, really well. And it was interesting because I was young at that time, but there's still a mutual respect. and from both sides, right? And I think for me as a young entrepreneur, I had a lot of respect for them, and I learned from them. Even though I thought I knew better in many ways, I was still smart enough to just to listen. And then my first partners after them were people that I grew up in this first franchise with. I saw how they performed. I saw how they treated their employees. I saw how they treated their friends. And I just saw how they were in business. And I wasn't right with everybody 100% of the time. And I've had some things that I've learned over the years, like trust. Trust is a huge thing. And then here's probably the biggest thing, and something that I ask for people before we get into partnerships. I always look at, like, if I'm the company, us partners need to look at the company as we're the board of advisors advising that company, take all emotion out of it, look at that company and decide what's best for the company. Is it best to hire somebody or fire somebody, or to expand or to contract, or what is, meaning sell some of them or sell all of it? We need to do what's best for the company, not what's best for me personally right now in my life in relation to the company. And so I think if the partners can agree to do that, it really is a good thing for the partnership, and everybody can move forward.
Easier said than done in reality, though. Like at the beginning, and everyone agrees to that is very different than when you're, dealing with stuff.
For sure. That is very much easier said. I've done it, but that took when we sold Sola, it was a year, and we ended up selling it private equity, but it was a lot of conversation, heated conversations at time with the partners. But we're all friends today, but we had things in the contract too to help move things forward, to be the guide. And I think that helped preserve some friendships too, because we just fall back on the contract. Sometimes I was on the winning side of that. Sometimes I was on the losing side of that.
That's really awesome. And a higher level of thinking than some people can do, especially because you're a seasoned business owner. Yes. You've been through a lot. You've got a lot of wisdom from experience as you went through also, right? Which we're all gleaning from you, right? And if someone hires you, hopefully they can glean that from you and not make as many mistakes, because it's painful to make mistakes as a business owner. Yeah.
Extremely.
Okay. Everyone's like,
I'm still making them. I'm still making mistakes.
Darn it. Why can't we all just be perfect? I mean, we are and all, but so I know we have to start wrapping up. I know you
and I are on this podcast.
Perfect. Always. So what is one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million?
It goes back to that key employee. I would go evaluate that key person and make sure that your goals align with their goals. Where are they wanting to go? Who are they wanting to be? Does that line up with where they can go within your organization? If you can't take them where they need to go within your organization, they will probably be gone at some point. And if you can get them where they want to go, then really lay out the path for them, whether it's financial or just freedom for them, or some type of ownership structure, or whatever it is that they want. Just make sure that those goals align, because you don't want to lose your best people.
Totally. And if you don't know what your best people want, please ask them. Ask them.
Yes.
It's so important.
It's not rocket science, is it?
No, but it's when we're busy as business owners and priorities get skewed, right? When we're dealing with a bunch of things. So I so appreciate this. Make sure everybody listens to what he says today to prevent future pain. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And where can they find out a lot more about you online?
FranchiseSecrets.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jamie. It was a lot of fun.
If you enjoy this show, I would really appreciate your wonderful words of feedback. Go leave me a review. I would love a rating, whatever you can do in the time that you've got. I would so appreciate it.